Welcome for the New Media Consortium event. This is the Future Trends Forum, live from the conference. We're going to start our first guest really soon. But if you're already here, what I'd like you to do is to introduce yourselves first via the chat box. So if you could, Ed, the echo should be gone now. So if we've got Zach, Mike, Diane, Nicole, Ed, Dave Tatum, a whole bunch of you folks. We have Jack, another Michael, Richard, Carrie, a ton of people. If you could just go to the chat box and say who you are and where you are today, if you're at the NMC conference or if you're at home or at work somewhere else. And if you don't know how to do that, go to the very bottom right-hand corner of the screen. There's a little teal strip that has three different options. One of them has what looks like a dialog box. Click that, and it'll pop up an instant message window for everyone who's in there from you. So we already have Dave Tatum, who's saying hello. And greetings, Brittany. I hope things aren't too hot in Midway. Hello, Diane. And we'll be starting with our first guest in just a little while. And if you're new to the Shindig environment, let me just quickly explain what you're looking at and how this works. This is a video conferencing platform. You're probably familiar with other examples of this. But this has a few differences. So first of all, the very top part of the screen is what we call a stage. And this is where presenters are, or if we have any slides, we're right up here. So everyone in the audience can hear and see us just fine. But below us is where the entire audience is, where all the participants are. And if you look around right now, you can see some people represented by a video feed. So you can see, for example, David Tatum, and he's looking over to one side and with a nice bookshelf behind him, probably wondering, oh my God, I've been called out. And other people like Michael are represented by silhouettes. And as you watch, you'll see this swarm of participants. Each representation will move from side to side a little bit. So that's where everybody is. If you want to talk to somebody in private, simply click or double click on their icon. And if they want to talk to you, you'll click together and you'll have your own private kind of cone of silence audiovisual bubble, which is very handy. Now, a couple other things that are on here. So if you look in the very bottom right corner, I mentioned a teal strip, and it has three different options on it. So if you click the question mark, you can type in a question. So if you'd like us to read a question or comment out loud, type it in there, and we'll pop it up when it's right. I'll read it out loud. We'll flash it on the screen. Now, if you'd like to join us on stage, simply click the raise hand button. And when the time is right, we'll pop you up on stage right next to myself and whoever else is here. Now, for text, there's a little I am button. So again, it looks like a little dialog box for a comic strip. Click that, and you'll get a chat room that pops up. And then you can talk to everybody who's there with you. So right now, this would be Ed, Diane, Mike A, and Michael Meningus from Randolph College. Or if you want to talk to someone privately, just click on their name. So you could send an instant message to Richard Wack or Zach L or Carrie or whomever. So we have those methods. And meanwhile, if that's not enough for you to communicate with each other, you can head over to Twitter, and we've got the hashtag FTTE. So use that, and we'll be tracking that as we go. Now, our keynote, or rather, our first guest is going to be Richard Culatta. He'll be here just as soon as we can pry him loose from the keynote of NMC. And then we'll be talking with him about what he's seen and what he's observed. It looks like already there's a pretty active Twitter discussion about Richard's speech. So you can see people talking about questions of, on the one hand, when and what to flip in the flipped classroom. And there's also a question about different technologies, including web-based video and text message. Some interesting comparisons between education and Netflix or education and Amazon. Well, while we're putting everyone together and while you guys are settling in, let me just introduce the Future Trends Forum for those who haven't been here or those who haven't been here for a while. So why don't we just take a look at some of the backgrounds of how this works and what makes it possible. So Tara, over to the next slide, please. So one thing you should know is that the Future Trends Forum is an outgrowth of the Future Trends in Technology and Education report. If you haven't seen that, go to ftte.us. This is a monthly trends analysis that takes a look at current trends in technology and education, looking at what has appeared over the past month to see what they tell us about the future of education. And we've been doing this for about 5 years, so we have a nice record, a nice longitudinal record of what trends tend to be slow, what tends to be fast, what tends to be weak, and what tends to be strong. This comes out every month. It's free, and you can take a look at some back issues. But this forum, instead, this is the conversational basis. This is how we talk to people in the community and share knowledge about where these future trends are going. Now, this week is an unusual event. This is one of our live events. So we are not coming to you from a hidey hole or from an office. We're coming to you from a live event. So this is the New Media Consortium event. It's taking place in Boston, Massachusetts. It's the second day, the first full day of the event. There are about 350 people here from all over the world, people who are librarians, technologists, faculty members, administrators. They're all talking about the impact of new media and what new media can do for education. Now, I mentioned that the NMC conference is well represented around the world, and this is also where the forum is. For the past year and a half now, we've had conversations literally around the world. We've had participants from almost every continent, from East Asia to Australia to South America, across North America and Europe. It's really important that if we're thinking about the future of post-secondary education, that we need to have global conferences because the developments are transnational. If you look closely at the map, if you see those little yellow tags, you can see the different places that I've been leading the session from. So my own personal role has been pretty international. Now, we can only do this with the support of some generous people, and I want to draw attention to them. I recognize them before we go further. First, I want to thank NYSERNet from New York State. This is a nonprofit that helps connect colleges and universities with broadband. They've been very generous in their support of the FTTE report, and we're very grateful to them. And we're also grateful to Shindig. Shindig has done a wonderful job of providing two great services for us. One is this technology right here. So we get to use this powerful video conferencing technology. And we're also grateful to them for their people because their wonderful staff have been very, very helpful at everything from production to technology troubleshooting to helping design these very slides. So we're grateful to them. And a third source of gratitude is towards, well, you, towards as many people as we can find. We have, through Patreon, we have a support network of people who contribute to keep the Future Trends Forum going. And you can see these are people who donate as little as $1 a month just to keep the lights on here. And we're very, very grateful to them. If you haven't been, you haven't had a chance to see it or a chance to participate, please go to patreon.com/Brian Alexander and contribute if you can, and definitely learn more. Now, here, let's go to the next slide. Here at the conference, we have the advantage of doing a live session is that we have people who are drop-in and people who we schedule. And so what we hope to do is to give you, if you're not at the conference, a sampler of what's going on here, of what people are up to, what they're learning, what they're thinking, to kind of give you a virtual foothold in this conference. So right now, we'd like to begin, if we could, by dragging in two people who just walked in the door. This is as dramatic as it can be. This is live entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. We have two great friends of the Future Trends Forum and two personal friends of mine. We have Maya Georgieva and we have Emory Craig. These people are, I think, for my money, the experts in virtual reality and education. These are the people that are the go-tos if you want to learn the possibilities of virtual reality for education and where it's going. They're thoroughly grounded in practice. They usually come bearing a ton of technology. They have a fantastic sense of humor, and they have a keen eye on where the technology is going and where practice is going. So if you ever see them in town, you have to go so you can learn from them. But in the meantime, we'll bring them in. Welcome, by the way, to Robin Sullivan from Buffalo, or Roberta Sullivan. I hope summer is getting pretty pleasant there. You guys want to join us? Pull up a couple of chairs.
Where do we sit?
Well, we've got two chairs here.
Okay.
And we have one camera here propped up.
Just lost connection, so if you want to keep talking for a minute.
Well, you have to imagine, friends, that if you haven't seen this being done live, this is a room here at the hotel, and we have at least 5 laptops all around a table, multiple cameras, multiple other peripheral devices, everything from Ethernet cables, earbuds, speakers, mics, and another camera. So this is a full-fledged production process going on right now. And in order to have all this work, I want to thank Tara, who I haven't mentioned before today, who has a fantastic shout, who is just doing a great job of cat herding a ton of things from humans to technology. Vanessa, I'm glad you can hear us. I'm glad your sound is back. Let's see if we can get camera working. And here, in fact, I'll I'll make everything even trickier and just cram everybody onto my laptop's camera. So there's Maya, and there's Emory.
Hi.
And we can actually start now. I mean,
We can.
until the camera gets
However
back.
you want to do it.
So just to begin with, let me ask you, how was your conference so far?
It's exciting. We just, as you know, completed a pre-workshop conference session yesterday morning, but the conference just kicked off, and there will be like 2 exciting days, and we have a number of other events. So we're right now basically,
Wow.
basically just, trying to reflect on the first day and getting ready in gear for what's to come.
Right. Lots of activities today.
Yeah.
But it's been great so far. Our pre-conference session went really well. We had a full house.
Good.
And it was really good. Lots of fun and great discussion and a great time using the technology. So,
Well, that's a great thing, a hands-on session.
Well, it was very much hands-on this time. We did something very different. Yeah, we kind of set up a little makerspace sort of environment with different technology at each of the tables, and we did the quickest possible overview that we could do, a couple of slides, and then jumped right in to having them go around it. They had to pick in advance and select three of 5 experiences and
Experiences that you would be offering.
Yeah. The technologists at our table had handouts on how to use it, and some of the ideas with it, and they played around with stuff.
Yeah, put them up on stage. So we make that 6 computers. So I'm just curious, when you say ahead of time, was that the night before, or did you email everybody a week before? Or
A week before. So
nice.
it's a fun sort of speed dating. Experiences are very fun. I have a long history of actually doing them from the early days of mobile.
We used to do them with mobile apps.
So
when the apps were like the thing.
So 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we used to do that, and augmented reality was like a small subset 5 years ago with apps. And now, for me, it has come like really to full fruition to do a virtual reality and augmented reality speed dating. So we have people basically we have 5 different tables, 3D mobile, 3D printing, scanning, and then virtual reality mobile apps, and then we have augmented reality mobile apps, and then we have 360 cameras, and then we had sort of the next generation Google Daydream with the controllers and Georgieva with controllers for more like immersive experiences. So people kind of had an itinerary for the day, for half of the day.
Based on what their preferences were, we had
they had the dates set.
Yeah, so we had sent out a survey a week in advance and got responses from just about everyone.
So we wanted to see if there would be a first sight. And, I think there were some images on the NMC Twitter feed that, maybe suggests some people gravitating to certain things they liked at the workshop. But it was it was fun, it was playful. I think it gave an opportunity for people to have their things in their hands, to also have discussion with people, people that are interested, people who've heard about it, who know somebody else at the institution perhaps doing it, or maybe actually have already experimented a bit. And so was very much active learning, and that's the idea, because so much of sort of the early conversation have focused on some of the hype, or the technology, which is still hype, or some of the sort of more negative, this will be a very kind of individual, not very social experience. And on the other hand, what we actually try to say, no, actually, this is about active learning. This actually can now travel with you into your research site, or to, you can actually move into creating your own field trips. Yes, they probably, still will feel like a homemade video. We are where we are. There is a recognition of that, but you can be a creator, and I think that's fun.
So this kind of challenges some of the usual assumptions of VR. So on the one hand, you have the idea that VR is isolating. So you strap on the headset and that's it. But you're making this social. And the second is, instead of this being consumer oriented, I'm going to suck down the latest from the New York Times or from Tribeca
Right.
Film Festival, instead making people be creators.
Yeah, and
That's huge.
you know, I think the idea is that by starting to experiment now, once this matures from a technology and platform standpoint, you know, people will be in a much better place to actually think about experiences that are meaningful. I think now is the time to start like small sort of experimentations, incubate some things, see how this feels and works, and in kind of like in the expectations that both the technologies and the platforms are in a flux and are getting better every day.
Right.
And so this has been, this has been sort of our mission from the very beginning, to kind of have these conversations going and thinking about this and be part of the emerging sort of conversation in society. And so that, I think, is kind of one of our goals.
Yeah, and one of the nice things to see, of course, in this office, as you know, we all know what happens with technology is that the price just plummets every year.
Right.
You know, it gets better and the price falls, you know, and that is happening with the 360-degree cameras. It's happening with the headsets. It's happening across the board, which means, first of all, the students are getting their hands on stuff. And that's, you know, and you're not just saying, oh, the institution can have this and we can loan it out to you kind of thing, or you can come to a lab and use it there, but students are going to start acquiring this on their own. And I think that's just good. We're just going to see the creativity blossom here.
Do you think that'll drive, there'll be kind of push for campuses to do more VR once the students are showing up? Will they be demanding it?
Well, the bandwidth will be very demanding.
There's going to be a lot of demands. I definitely think students are. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting, you know, even at my institution, and we're just doing some low-level projects with, you know, with Daydream and Sensing Gear VR and Google Cardboard stuff. And I would do stuff in my class, and then students will talk to another student, Next thing I know, I got a faculty member in my office saying, "Can you come by and do a demonstration? Can you bring all that stuff in, and you know, let's see how we can use this in nursing or in a literature class or something like that. What can we do with this?" You know, and that's so word gets around, and that's, you know, because the thing is once you try this, you just go, this has huge potential. This really does. And,
it's different.
You know, and I've seen my students do some absolutely amazing things with it. I mean, just, you know, even a student last year take a 360 camera. They always have to do final projects that relate to their life experience or their personal career experience. And, you know, did 360 video. It lives in a tough neighborhood in New York, and he skateboards. And, you know, down he went down the street holding the 360 camera. And, you know, and you just go like, whoa. I mean, he showed this 5-minute video, and of course, he's just showing on a screen, and we're not really able to scroll around that well. I mean, he was kind of doing it with the mouse to show his 360, but then we posted it, and I'm sure I know students went back and looked at it multiple times, because it wasn't like, oh, this is my neighborhood. This is what I mean, first of all, everybody said you skateboard like a daredevil, you crazy person, you know, like you're still alive. But I mean, he also, you know, he was able to just sort of point things out about the history, about, you know, potential gentrification that's going on, about the social challenges that people in the neighborhood face right now. And it was just such an engaging and short experience. I mean, short, but just incredibly engaging experience. I mean, students were just like, this is all right. Everybody kind of walked out of class going, I have to have one of these. I have to start doing this too. And that's sort of what you want.
Then you take that skateboard back a few rolls of the wheel. I mean, one thing about that is as I was saying, this is a good example of it being social, both in the sense that he's describing a social environment, and the experience of your students then get electrified by this, and it carries on. But also, this is another example of what you said before, of students talking to students, talking to faculty, and the transition begins to happen. But a second thing about this is that it's production oriented, where the student made this video, and was able to share it.
And in a way that we would all never do, because we think, camera, you got to stand still.
Right.
We wouldn't say, I'm going to pop on my skateboard.
So I mean, he didn't strap it to his head?
No, he was holding it most times.
Wow.
You know.
As we said yesterday, the selfie stick will become an educational tool.
Right.
Because it's so much. It does add, if you are holding your 360 to create an AR experience, or even your 360 camera, it does actually provide you with additional sort of tools.
project and stuff like that, that no, this actually could become a learning tool. This
really
is
could.
piece of, this piece of consumer, what I just want to call, a total obnoxious device could actually, be reinvented as something that we would use.
That will bring fidelity of all things.
And help students, in the classroom, outside the classroom. I go, okay, you never know.
I was in London a few months back and crossing London Bridge, and a group of people had a selfie stick, and they strode out into traffic. And if you haven't been to London, the traffic there is psychotic. And they had a selfie stick, and they were posing really carefully, and cars started to pile up. And it was just a nightmare. But this documentary feature is crucial. I mean, you think about early video projects when you had like the Portapak from Sony. You're actually in New York, go around and film everything there. And you think about storytelling in VR. Place is so important. I'm just thinking all the assignments you could have. Go through historical districts, go to an arboretum, and plus different plans, right? Imagine study abroad. Here I'm in Madrid or in Tokyo. And of course, if I remember correctly, you mentioned you had autobiographical functions for your students. Tell us about your life, where you came from.
Connected, I mean, I was so in the last year, I've been reflecting a lot about that because I came 10 years ago as an international student. The most
10 years ago.
The most I could do basically a little more than 10 actually. The most I could do is do some low resolution video, but mostly a lot of images, still images. And basically try to explain where I'm from. And today, 360, experience from my hometown would have had so much more, in a way, richer way of sharing where I come from. It works the other way. My niece, who's in Bulgaria, and is only 10, and so she's seen a lot of pictures of New York City. She's seen a lot of sort of children's books about the city and some of the sites and the Statue of Liberty. But we actually brought her the VR kit set. The little thing. I forget what it's called.
The
slide view, the view. And so for the first time, she experienced them in 360.
Well, hang on a second. So there's a kids version.
There's a kids version.
The slide. What do you call it? The Viewmaster.
Viewmaster. There's a little Viewmaster thing in VR for younger students.
So it's like a classic Viewmaster.
So she's dead.
Classic Viewmaster, but it's 360, images.
What was the toy video camera that people have actually been using? The Mattel one?
Mattel. It's Mattel. Viewmaster is also like the new Viewmaster is also basically a
Did you see the surveillance Barbie that was available for a while?
I saw it in the news. But so
the children, this is really important. That children get, your niece is 10?
10. So she's 10. Yeah. This is for always being New York City is the place I love. She, receives a lot of information. She knows what a yellow cab is probably since the time she was 5.
While it exists.
Yes, while it exists. But when she did that, and I watched her tell the story to her friends, it just was serendipity. The next day. And she told this, and it was her trip, not my city. She was there, she saw the Statue of Liberty, there's a park, and you can walk around the park. And so for me, just witnessing this moment was so insightful because now it was her story. And it's in that sort of sense of sharing. I think your cultural background, understanding, putting it in context for others to understand your world and your outlook of the world. That is it's very humanistic way of looking at things. And it's not about the technology. It's actually when you create something like this and other people have that emotional moment, it's actually the humanity is gushing out of it.
It shifts the paradigm.
Well, I've heard this referred to as an empathy engine.
Yes.
But that presence is so important. Her shifting grammar when she says, my trip. I mentioned before that the place is so important for VR storytelling, but also that sense of personal presence. Now you can have some ownership over it, a deep connection. Again, think about that pedagogically, how you want to set this up. I'm thinking everything from psychology classes to imagine working with veterans. Right. What a fantastic, powerful tool. Let me pause just for a second because as you guys can see, if you don't know my Emory, these guys are like this all the time. They are fireballs of energy. I just want to mention a couple of meta things. First of all, this is a discussion, and it's not just the three of us talking, which is mostly these two geniuses. It's also you guys. So please, if you have comments or questions, on the very bottom right strip of the screen, click on one of those three options. If you want to type in a question, ask about the name of that ViewMaster, type in a question, and I'll pop it up and I'll read it out loud. If you want to join us on stage, we have room. So how many can we fit now? 4?
Yes.
We can have a whole crowd up here.
We can get more crowd.
That's right. We'll have the fire marshal here. This is great. And please click that to join us. And if you want to type in a question to the chat box, and we've already been seeing that, just click the little dialogue box. And we've already seen Vanessa talking about what she's working on. So please join us for that. And there's also, of course, room on Twitter. And while that's happening, there's other people piling into the room right now. So we may just be bringing them on to hear more. And people, again, are on Twitter discussing us. And please, if you prefer to tweet away, please add some comments or thoughts. So again, while you've got these two folks here, please bug us as much as you can. And we also have this podium feature. So if you'd like, if you're feeling that your camera works, that your mic works, if you'd like to join us, please click the podium option and just pop yourself up on stage. Now, I want to ask you guys a different question, which is you've been here for about 24 hours, maybe a little less. You've had a chance to talk to people, both in your first session and then also over meals and this kind of thing. What ideas are you hearing floating around? What are people coming to you thinking about, either for VR or for other things? I'm asking because I want to give people a sense of what it's like to be here at the conference.
I think that the conversations are a lot about social and emotional learning. I think yesterday, and it was for us, it was the extension of the day, but it's really, we had sort of a set number of options and questions and things for participants to work on. And a lot of the participants chose the creative route versus the more strategic route. And we noticed a diverse community, but certainly NMC is special by actually perhaps bringing the most creative of educators and instructional designers and educational designers.
So
it was a reflection,
very creative crowd here
of that community.
Yeah, right.
And that's why I think all love to be here.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think people are really interested in the social element of how do we empower our students and what can we do to better connect with them and better prepare them to be socially active.
I'm doing this. I'm treating you guys like a literary text. So now I'm adding footnotes and marginal comments because these are so important. I want to make sure that you guys hear some of these. But some of the wonderful pedagogical assumptions. One is that we're looking at a lot of this technology in part to better connect with students, either because the students might be more accustomed to the technology, which may be true of younger generations in just a few years, but also because these may have connective powers, like VR being an empathy tool, for example. But also that you want the students to be involved. You want them to be creators. And this is so mission empowering students. And this is a really, really crucial aspect. It's by no means universally shared across education.
Oh, no, it's not.
No, and I think that the questions that are raised now is basically the awareness that we need to work on that.
Yes.
I think it's more like a signal of that. People are looking, I think, for these virtual and augmented reality as a way to enhance that, as a way to find perhaps new affordances where we haven't had in other mediums. Sort of my personal reflection on our workshop yesterday was that a year ago, we similarly have a very nice sort of workshop at the NMC. As you know, we do other events. But now, yesterday, we felt we were able to go deeper.
Yep.
And I think one is that the awareness has reached a point among educators and among the community that they actually want to go deeper. But I think second is looking for these connection points.
Yep.
That's vital.
And so something like 70% of the participants were doing some kind of experimentation, which obviously, they were in a workshop, but if you go back a year, it was
very
probably
early.
early.
This is not a project. Right. It's more, it may mean being with a team and thinking that next year we,
But it was everything from that to we already have a VR lab kind of thing. But you go back a year, it was 40%. You go back 2 years, it was 5%,
20,
15%,
15%,
something like that. So when you get to 70%, you stop talking about the technology and you start talking about more the, how it is going to change the the impact it's having on students.
Okay, so let's pick an hour. If a couple of years ago it was the dawn of VR, what time is it now? Is it 9 o'clock? Maybe 9:30?
9.
9? Okay.
I would say earlier, but
maybe
8:50. Between 8:30 and 9, depending on what coast and weather.
Sure.
And you can carry that metaphor out and say there's still a lot of people sleeping, not here, but and not online, but
you guys
but within
you guys are a 2-person shot of coffee for the
right. but the coffee is percolating. People are starting to rise up.
Out of bed. The aromas are coming.
Okay, this is good. We'll smell that soon.
We're going to smell that. It's a whole new day.
We have a couple of questions that have come from participants. Tara, if you can flash this one up on the screen to begin with, and I can actually read it. This is for VR in place. How do you see the use of VR and 360 changing the relationship between student, faculty, and place? That's a subtle question, Michael.
That's a very good question.
Yes, I mean there's some sort of very quick things that come to mind. Obviously, the population of online students are growing.
And people taking classes entirely online?
Entirely online. Yeah. And so there's an opportunity for these people to use virtual and augmented reality to tell their story and connect with others. So that, in a way that, perhaps was, not as quick or not as sort of impactful, bringing it by text or, sort of other ways of media. So there is a very quick way to do that. As you mentioned, international students study abroad types of experiences. Yeah. But I think that the further along, I think, is the opportunity to, as students will, bring inside and bring new ideas to this process, to be a co-creating and co-sharing space. And obviously, we were very, very, I think, sort of very much suggesting that to folks, thinking about ideas, starting to think about how to create a space on their campus. And, we definitely felt that bringing students early on would be a great way to start. Bringing into a makerspace would be a great way. Thinking about extracurricular first, perhaps, would be, a place to start, a good place to start.
Oh, sports.
Some of the social elements of campuses as well. So I think that you could perhaps create a space that it's outside of this kind of very Western rows of thinking, teacher and student, and more like a community and more like conversational space, and perhaps students can teach a few things their faculty.
And it's also going to change the significance of the classroom space itself. About it.
Yes.
Because and mobile technology has already done that, has it not? Because and faculty have varying ways of approaching this. A few saying, okay, no laptops, no mobile phones in class, not the same. We're going to incorporate it some way, but the challenge is always there now that you're in class, you're teaching, and someone's on Facebook. Well, they're really not there in the same way, or where they are, they're multitasking, but it's questionable about how much you can multitask.
So we are bringing Ed Finn up on stage. We'll just take a second more with his own question. And again, for the rest of you, please, as you can see, it's really easy to have questions. So please, if you want us to read them out loud, just click the button for that, the question mark. And if you want to join us on stage, just click the raise hand. Or you can see right now on the top of the screen, there should be a greenish box with the word join. Like that if you want to pop yourself up on stage. I think Ed is doing that right now. Ed, can you hear us?
Hi, Brian. I can hear again. Thank you.
Good to see you. Are you in Michigan right now?
No, in Chicago.
Oh, great. It looks like there's lots of snow outside.
No, actually, I've just got a vent behind me. But we're doing good. It's in the 90s here this week, so pretty warm in the Windy City. So, but But thank you. This has been a great discussion so far, and just a little context. I worked with 14 small liberal arts colleges, and so there's been a lot of talk recently about VR, and especially how to incorporate that into the things they're already doing. They've done a lot in Unity 3D and done a lot of creating virtual worlds to go into just on the computer, but now they're starting to get the HoloLens and experiment a little bit, and they're also looking at like the HTC Vive and just different things to use. And I wondered if you had any advice or any kind of I don't know, recommendations on how to best approach that when you have these objects that are already created and moving those into a space where you can't just visually look at them, but engage and interact with them.
So, I mean, it's interesting. I think I would approach them a little differently. I think one of the ways to kind of make the interfaces work, just to give you, some of the insights I often shared with folks, and maybe, that will give you some insights of where you might go with that, is oftentimes is when you want to create interactions in VR, the best way to think about them is like mini moments of interactions, sequences of mini moments. So one of the ways to think about this is, okay, where are the opportunities in these experiences for these moments of interactions, and what are they going to add? What kind of layer are they going to add to the experience or the story, and focus on that. And sometimes, when you go into that experimental space, it's good to do just a few interactions, quick interactions early on. And I often suggest this is what Google do. One of their early VR sort of interactive exercises was flipping pancakes in VR. But it gives you the opportunity to see what you can do with movement and interface. So creating sort of a number of ideas of how you may go about interaction, and then trying to think about how those can enhance the experience that already exists. Now, these projects are VR projects are quite complex in terms of adding layers on top, and this. So there could be in terms of the technical experience, depending on how these projects were developed, there could be a technical layer where there may be a permission to do certain things and not others at this point.
And another thing I'd just add to this is I think we're in a really challenging time here because of, small liberal arts institutions. Some of you, or even a big institution, you mostly don't go out and buy 20 HTC Vive headsets. You have a couple in a room. And so, you have a couple people using it. And the big question to me is, what is everybody else doing? Because you don't want to sit around and watch somebody do VR. I mean, it's kind of interesting the first time. It might be interesting if somebody's doing a really unusual experience that requires a lot of body motion. But outside of that, it's sort of like, this gets boring really, really fast. And, you have to think in terms of possibly live streaming what the experience is on the screen onto a wall so that students can be talking about it, thinking about it at the same time. You do that. Oh, yeah, it does become kind of a performance piece, if you will. And, then maybe students can analyze that. And I know that Noni de la Pena has done that with her,
and we've done it.
Now we've done it with, because then, you have one person in the line with the, with a homeless and somebody has a seizure, but then at least everybody else can see, okay, how is this person? Because you see what the person is doing who's wearing a headset, but you need to be able to see the context of what they're in, of what they're looking at to get a sense, and then you see the larger picture here. That's important. I think there's some models down the road that could be really interesting. We're not there yet, but we could do these in learning environments a bit. There's a wonderful short little VR experience, keep talking and nobody dies kind of thing. I forget exactly what it's called, which is it's a little VR scenario where one person puts on a headset and does it, and everybody else has to go to a website and, come up with the codes to defuse the bomb. And it's this 3-minute super intense thing right down to the wire where everybody's engaged in the activity. Only one person is wearing the headset, but everybody else is at the same time. I gotta help out. So, even though everyone is not in VR, everyone is participating. It's almost sort of like a party game kind of thing, but you can see this paradigm sort of getting fleshed out into something larger. This model going into something that
I got to pause you for right now,
Okay.
because this is fascinating, and now I want to design a situation like this. But, we've got you have to see that there's a pile of people. Actually, I'll just tilt the camera around. You see there's a giant pile of people piling up here who all want to come in and speak. And
Right.
one of them is just coming off of giving a keynote address. So he's probably, his mind is buzzing.
So we need to let him get in.
We got to get him. Let me first thank you guys. Digitalbodies.net is where we find out about you.
Yeah, we write about that.
But as we let me thank you so much for coming. It's a privilege to be able to be with you two guys and an inspiration. Ed, that was a fantastic question.
Thank you, Ed.
I want to just respond to that. If I could, should we switch out?
Yeah.
You guys, relax.
Thank
and thank you
you.
for coming.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you,
coming.
Ryan. It's always,
Always a
these
pleasure.
conversations, I think, is the meta of the conference that
Yeah.
actually gives us an opportunity to reflect here, to share with everybody else, and
Good.
probably ideas for everybody else to why they should be here next year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And well, they should find you two guys.
Yeah.
Let me just keep talking. I want to draw attention to two things. Thank you for these insights.
Thank you.
We have two people who just came here from the future, and we have somebody else who will be speaking to us about the transformation of education. But I want to pull two things out of whatever you just said that I think are especially fascinating. One is Ed's question was about, I don't know if you got the full background. Ed works with a network of colleges across the Midwest of the United States. So one key feature of this is that we want to make sure that we can have that kind of collaboration. Oh, come on down. I guess we both dressed in more or less similar fashion.
I was trying to match your dress code.
That's good. So these are collaborations that are interinstitutional, which is really vital to have. But a second thing, I keep coming back to storytelling, is that we have this issue of how do we tell stories using VR? And one key part of that is with serial. So Emory and Craig both mentioned that these moments, I think was the word that Maya used, they'd be broken up into little pieces and they'd be strung together. So we've done this before. I mean, you think about, say, TV, where we have a TV show that's a serial, or you think about radio serials, or going back to, say, Dickens, who published everything in a serial fashion. That's very different from, say, a 2-hour feature film or a 400-page novel. So that's, I think, a very important detail to keep in mind when we're thinking about VR. But before, we can talk about that for a long time. I want to talk with Richard Culatta. Is it Culatta?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank you so much for coming.
Glad to be here.
You just got to talk to 400 people at once.
Yeah.
And now we're putting you head first.
No, I will say yes. That's the right answer.
That's the appropriate answer. That's the only answer that's permissible. But I'm glad. Welcome back.
Good, thanks.
So this is, we consider this hot here.
Yeah.
And I know in Virginia this is considered a nice pleasant spring day.
Cooling off up here. That's
right.
good.
That's right. You have a coat, which is very helpful.
That's right.
And what do you do now?
The new role. I am the CEO of an organization called the International Society for Technology in Education. ISTE is the acronym, if you're familiar with the organization.
Good CEO,
so,
congratulations.
yeah. It's a little over a month. So those who were making bets that I wouldn't make it, I've proven them all wrong.
Well, so far, there's still time.
But no, I'm thrilled to. It's actually I've been a member of the organization for years, and so it's really an honor to be able to be working there now.
Well, it must be. I mean, ISTE is huge.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great group.
Can you say anything that you've learned either about ISTE or about education technology from this brief month of acculturation?
Yeah, I've learned, some things that I've learned about, we're back. Okay.
Was you back? Good.
So anyway, thousands of educators. It's been interesting to know. I didn't realize the extent of the publishing that ISTE does. So we have a whole publishing house, journals, peer-reviewed journals that we do, also translated and distributed around the world. So there's just some exciting stuff that even as a member of the organization for years, I'm like, wow, look at this, which is amazing.
Well, that's a good way to learn how to learn organizations to take it over.
Yeah, that's really why I did it.
What for the virtual conversations? Are those mostly done through webinars or through email lists? Or?
It's largely through certain discussion forums. But they're interesting because they're highly curated. So if you want to start a new topic, you actually have to come to us with a leadership team around the topic.
Wow.
And we have an MOU that you sign that says that if a question gets asked, it doesn't wait for more than a certain amount of time. We monitor the use. If there's a case where there's a thread, a topic that doesn't feel like it's really vibrant, we actually take it down so that you don't have these are not like the AOL discussions from the early 90s. These are really vibrant, quick. We actually like to think of it as sort of live professional development. And so people can jump in if they're in a school or some place where you may be the only It is that you're an English teacher and very quickly be part of a network of other people.
And you say we, I mean, so the ISTE staff do that job of gatekeeping.
So
monitoring.
the ISTE staff monitor the quality, but all of the leadership roles are actually from the community. They come in and they do that. And also when you want to create a new thread, a new forum, you have to come and say, here's the audience we think will care about it. And so because again, we're trying really hard to show what online engagement looks like in the awesomest sense of it.
Right.
And everybody can think of the examples of, I posted a thing on the forum and nobody responded. And, and so we're trying to say, no, let's show what it looks like when you can really blow it out of the water.
Oh, that's
Works.
so we seem to be back up.
Can you hear us?
Okay. This is always the perpetual struggle with bandwidth, and we're fighting it very, very ferociously. You guys should be able to hear us all just fine right now. So, Richard, you were one of the things that really struck me from the Twitter conversation, or Twitter reportage of your comments, was that you were recommending text and using text as an educational medium. I know there was a piece, a very short piece that came up a couple of days ago online about this, that we should go back to text as a revolutionary textual medium for education.
Yeah.
And what were you thinking about that?
So, look, I don't mean that we should whenever I hear we should go back to, it's sort of where, there's a whole bunch of other things that we should not abandon. I was sitting and listening in the conversation you're having about augmented reality and virtual reality, which I am totally excited about. But at the same time, there's some technologies that I don't know that we ever really took advantage of as best as we could. And text is one of them. Yeah. When one of the projects that happened when I was working for the Obama administration, it was not one of my projects, but it was one that some of my colleagues worked on, was a project called Text for Baby. And Text for Baby, it still exists. When a woman finds out she's pregnant, she can go into your phone and just text the numbers, text number 4 baby with the due date. You text it, and then all of a sudden, every week, it sends a text message that says, hey, here's something you should know about this week. If you haven't started taking these vitamins, you should do that. So if you haven't had an appointment, maybe this is a good time to check in. Just a heads up, here's what your baby's doing. By the way, here's something you should probably stop eating at this point, or whatever, right? Just a great way to provide really quick information. And that idea, there's a whole science now that's being developed around that called nudge and nudge technologies, right? And it's this idea of, can we just give little bits of information to just help nudge you to do the right thing?
We use in data analytics in higher education, right?
Sure.
How are you doing in this class? We see that you haven't checked in for a bit.
Right, exactly. And I think the thing is, often when we think about analytics and sort of nudge technology, we think big, complicated systems. We all of a sudden, in education, we just make things so complicated so quickly. Sometimes it's just as simple as just sending some text messages and checking. Great. And I think it's just a medium that we haven't done enough with.
Also for accessibility and equity. I mean, because not everyone has a smartphone.
Sure. Right, and you can get so much, and it also, in some ways, is rise above the noise. So on my phone, I have Facebook, and I have my email, of course, which is who knows the last time I checked any of my email, right? I mean, it just sort of piles up and mountains up, and then sometimes you just get a buzz of a text, and it kind of cuts through all that. Which, if used carefully, if you overdo it, but used carefully with a little nudge, it can be very.
Well, it works with Ember alerts, right?
Sure, that's the whole idea behind Emory. And look, there are other ways to do nudges too. I mean, one of the things that I think when I was in Rhode Island as the Chief Innovation Officer for Rhode Island, we were looking at nudges, and we found the electric company, the power companies, have started doing a nudge on your bill. Some of you may see this, and it says, here's your power consumption. By the way, here's your neighbor's power consumption. And it's just a little nudge, and it says, wow, I didn't realize I'm blowing through the energy. Yeah. And it's just a little nudge to say, oh, maybe I could get along with a little bit less. Now in Rhode Island, what we were doing, what they're actually still running with this project, it's really cool, is they're saying, can we take that same concept and apply it to attendance for kids at school? And so they're going to start sending a message with to parents that says, hey, here's your kid's attendance. By the way, here's how other kids' attendance are. And you're like, oh, yeah.
It sounds like a very New England thing to do.
Yeah, right. Guilt.
guilt,
Yeah.
mobilizing your neighbors against you.
Yeah.
No, that's
great
brilliant,
strategies.
but it's so light.
Yeah,
The footprint is so light.
and that's the point, is that sometimes I think we just get we want to get very heavy into technology use, and sometimes it's just really light, quick touches that actually can make a huge difference.
No, that's brilliant, and that's just one piece of your talk. In a keynote, interactivity is often difficult to achieve in part because of a scale issue.
Yeah.
It's you versus hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to get feedback on your talk, or had either face-to-face or look at it online?
Yeah, we did a little. I mean, it is always a little bit challenging. I go around speaking about how we shouldn't stand in front of people and speak to them, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little,
It's always kind of fun.
cognitive dissonance that I have with my career. But it was interesting. I always open up for discussion and had some great feedback. And one of the things that came up, not surprisingly, was how do you move a large system? How do you take, someone said, hey, I think, some great ideas, but in my institution, ... right? It's always harder in your own institution than in somebody else's, it seems. And so I think that's one of the pieces of feedback is, or one of the questions was, what do you do to make an impact? Right. One of the things that we talked about a little bit is, again, sometimes I think in education we try to boil the ocean. We just want to do big, major, life-changing. Everybody in the planet immediately gets served, and then we find out that it doesn't happen, and we go, see, nothing ever changes in education. And part of what I was encouraging this group to think about is, again, what's the minimally viable product? What's the smallest thing you can bite off and do? And then take your next step. And I think if we can get better at using that MVP kind of strategy prototypes, we'll actually get farther faster.
That's a really, really powerful strategy. I mean, you heard part of Maya and Emory's discussion of VR.
Yes.
And it's one of the things you want to think about. So Google's virtual tours, for example, are MVPs. Right? Very, very basic, but they get the job done. Yeah. That's very
and
cool.
MVPs, look, the other thing you were talking about is, do you buy 30 Vives for a whole class? Right? No, you don't. You buy one, and I was overhearing that conversation, and you test it out, and you try it, and you see, wow, that's good. We should give some feedback to the software companies, probably make some better stuff. Right? If they get better stuff, then now two. Right? I mean, you build into it, and you learn along the way. But anytime somebody comes to me with their new approach that they're going to roll out to their whole school or their whole institution, I'm always like, it's just destined for failure.
I've got a question about that, but before I ask the question, let me just make sure that we have questions from other people. So again, if you're just joining us, there are 4 ways to participate. So right here on screen, if you look at the very bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see a little teal strip that has 3 different options. So one of them is a question mark. So click that if you want to type as a question. In the middle is a raised hand. So click that if your mic is working, your camera is working, you want to join us on stage, which is great. And if you want to text to everybody else in your group, so right now, if you want to say hello to everyone sitting around here, it's like Tom and Vanessa and Zach and Michael, just click that little, what looks like a kind of dialogue box from a comic, and that'll give you a chat with everybody who's coming around you into this Shindig environment. If that's not enough, if you prefer to go on Twitter, please tweet out using the hashtag FTTE. And we already have a question before I can ask my question from Ed Finn. So Ed, if this is just a question that you typed in, let me just read this out loud. And it was flashed on the screen so you guys can see it as well. Headers this, not losing sight of knowledge. To your point of ignoring ways of knowing, tax for the shiny new thing. How do you feel about the move away from handwriting, or at least the reading of cursive at the K through 12 level? Are we creating a communication gap?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And this is for full disclosure, you're talking to somebody who writes in all caps. So I don't even my teachers for years beat it into me that, I should try to learn cursive, and I never, I don't have any problem with the concept of teaching cursive. I really don't. I don't have problems with a whole bunch of things we need to teach. But the one thing that I keep reminding people when those questions come up is there is a finite amount of time that we have. And it's not a question of whether it's good or bad to teach cursive or to teach whatever. It is that really what we want to teach instead of X? And if you had to say, we're going to teach cursive instead of computer science, I'm not sure that would be what I would want my kids to have. And again, that's a choice that we got to make, and those are tough choices. And one of the most painful things when I was working in schools, in any organization, is to decide what you're not going to do.
That's hard.
But I do think we have to think about what are the skills, what are the essential skills for kids to survive in the future, to thrive in this digitally connected world. And unfortunately, some things that we love may not be may not have as much time as we would want them to have in order to really think about the things that have higher priority.
But friends, this is the voice of someone who has a great deal of experience with governments working under constrained environments, and this is very, very practical stuff. So we have more questions. Please throw them in. We have a lot to cover. The question I would ask, going back to the comment about the small scale, the minimum viable product versus the giant project, the moon launch, is a lot of these decisions are often made at the question of scale. So we have someone who's a university CIO, or they work with a system of schools, and that's the enterprise of their level. And so how do you, there's a huge gap between these. How do you cross that gap?
But this is awesome, and this is the part that I think we often miss, is that when you have somebody at an enterprise level, it doesn't mean that you got to roll everything out of the enterprise. And so one of the best things that you can do is, I love this idea of sort of rapid prototyping and sort of A/B testing. So if I'm over 10 campuses, sweet, I can run 100 A/B tests of a different approach every year. Every month, depending on what it is, right? And so we're going to say, hey, let's take and say, and it doesn't mean that we don't know where our vision is. So it's not the same as just like, oh, let's just let 1,000 flowers bloom and hope something works. No. We say, here's a goal that we're trying to work on. We have a problem taking students too long to graduate, or it's whatever it is. Students aren't as engaged as they should be. Great. We have a whole bunch of different ways that we can do it, and let's use the enterprise as a way to continually try stuff. And we're going to see how that didn't work very well. Great. It only affected a small group. No big deal. This one, who knew? But this over here worked. Was it just because it was that institution and there's some culture about the institution? Let's now try that one somewhere else. Worked in 2 institutions.
It's almost like an industrial policy.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And it's, by the way, it's the way big software companies do things. Amazon, what you will see at some point, there will be a button. This actually really was a real one that they did. All of a sudden, the button color changed on your Amazon experience. You had a buy button that was blue, and I had one that was orange or whatever it was.
A/B testing.
And they found out, and truly, this is a real one, A/B testing, they found out that people with the orange button, or whatever the color was, the brighter color button, actually bought more. Really? Would you think that it made a difference? And so guess what? The next day you log in, now everybody sees the orange button.
No, I missed that. We were a part of a giant experiment.
Yes, and you constantly are. But why on earth don't we do that in education? Why don't we constantly iterate and learn? And these big, long multi-year studies on things, it just sort of, I don't know, it's frustrating when we can just very quickly be testing out what's working in small bites, learn what works. If it doesn't work well, we haven't wasted a lot of money, we haven't taken a lot of time, and then we iterate quickly.
Speaking of quickly, I have a feeling that we need to bring you back for a full hour. Just so we can interrogate you, because this is fantastic.
I used to work for the CIA, so interrogation is right up my alley.
Literally, yeah. So I won't talk about
that was a joke,
here,
by the way. For all
please, we need a sign.
Thank you. Sorry, I know. I was waiting. Somebody's like, I knew it.
Well, it's okay. We're in Boston. We should be safe. We have a question here from Roxanne, I think.
Okay.
Tara, if you can bring it up, please. This is going again about VR. Oculus is giving free VR systems to 100 libraries in California. How do you feel about them doing this? Should this be encouraged, these types of partnerships?
Well, let me tell you this. I know no comment specifically on their product. I'm sort of product agnostic. Okay. But there's 2 approaches in here that I think are pretty cool. One is the idea of partnerships between companies and learning institutions, which I am very much in favor of.
Okay.
Now, it has to be done carefully, and I've seen them happen where they are not set up well, and it's really just a sneaky way to sell stuff, and don't love those. But when there are companies that are good companies that are really truly saying, hey, can you help us learn, help us kick the tires on it, tell us what's working, what's not, that's awesome, and I encourage that. But the other thing that I want to mention is I think we vastly underused libraries as locations for prototyping new learning experiences. When I was in Rhode Island, again, back to my Rhode Island times, we actually created a next generation library challenge. And we brought our libraries together and stepped them through a design process. Said, how would you reimagine learning experiences in the library?
These are public libraries.
Public libraries. Right. And we have, and then 2 of them were sort of went through the process where the finalists, they're actually working on implementing those right now, which are going to be some pretty cool projects. But I found that libraries, even in schools, whether it's higher ed or K-12, because of the physical location, because of the flexibility of the space, because generally you have people, we were looking at how do we do a better job of figuring out the types of tools and apps to use in schools. And I was talking to some school leaders, and they were saying, how do we know in digital media? I said, man, if you only had somebody who understood curation and maybe knew a little bit about metadata, maybe was willing to maybe had a relationship with all of the instructors, because they weren't teaching all the hours. Who would that be? So I think there's great opportunities to innovate in use libraries actually as a center for innovation.
That's fantastic. And that if you haven't had a chance to take a look at our gigantic back catalog of Future Trends Forum sessions, we have about 4 about the future of libraries, and what you're saying connects with those really, really closely.
Yeah.
Speaking of closely, I'm a little concerned that you have a lot of fans who will want to interrogate you. If we continue the black site metaphor. And we have people with a lot of questions. We also have one more guest that we have to bring in before we completely run out of time. Let me ask you one final question, which is, what would you like people to be thinking about for the next day at this conference?
One thing.
Just one.
Well, so I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you what I shared just a minute ago to the whole group. And then I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to put a special one in for this group here. So that's my way of getting to how did that work? So for the broader group, I said, I'm really concerned about the risk of using technology in ways that digitize traditional practice. A couple years ago, I did a TED talk on that concept of, I worry that we go and we say, hey, we had these. When I was at the Department of Ed, I literally had somebody come to me, and they'd gone and licensed all those. Those dittos, those worksheets that you used to have, right? They licensed a pack of those. And you can laugh. We have somebody in the room laughing. You should laugh. It is crazy.
The smell.
Right? The smell. I love the smell of those. I used to remember when I was a teacher in the morning, purple dittos and coffee in the break room was the smell. Anyway, they licensed a pack of those, and they scanned them, and they put them onto an iPad app. And they came to show me, they're like, look at this great app that we've developed. And I said, I was thinking of something nice and supportive that I could say. And what I came up with was, you have a device that has more computing power than what we use to take the first people to the moon, and you're using it for dittos.
That was the nicest thing you could say.
So I thought that was supportive. It was not a great. I didn't buy the software, but I do think in complete seriousness, I do think we need to be very careful that as we take things that are familiar to us, even if they're totally weird and not helpful for students, they're familiar to us. And as we're creating online learning environments, we replicate those things. Things like all students learning the same thing at the same time. Things like the instructor very much being the one in control and it being very locked down for the students, very defined roles. Things like content being very static and not being developed and added to as it goes on. So I would love to think about really how do we make sure we don't digitize traditional practice. And then the part B that I'm going to sneak in here, which is related.
This is New England. This is the kind of
we just keep talking. This is how we do legislation too. We just keep adding stuff on.
A lot.
I used to work on the Hill, so I know how to do this. So one of the things that I would add to it is being very, very thoughtful about addressing issues of equity. I believe the tools that we have available, the technology tools, actually provide the most powerful suite of tools we've ever had to address long-standing equity issues, gaps that have just persisted for way, way, way too long. And the same tool that has the ability to close those gaps actually runs the risk of exacerbating those gaps. And that depends 100% on how we're thinking about willing and our way that we're willing to implement those.
One of those tools is called higher education.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a really excellent question. If you're looking at MC, by the way, tomorrow there's a closing speech by Audrey Waters who will probably address this. If we want to work back to libraries and questions of literacy, we'll be talking about that this afternoon in digital literacy session. Let me thank you so much.
It's great to be here.
It's like connecting with a supernova.
Thank you. No, that was really, hey, it's kind of cool how we do this thing. Like I put my hand here and it like shows up in your screen. Like that's.
Yeah, if only we had
we could like do it like a cheers.
Exactly.
Like that.
Look at this. This is pretty trippy. This is the opposite of the sage and the stage.
Good, because I'm no stage, so sage or
this
stage.
Is a stage, but we're using it a different way.
Thank you.
Thank you so
much. It's a
much.
great conversation. Great to have everybody participate.
We're going to pursue you and have you come back.
Good.
And welcome back to New England.
Thank you.
So glad to see you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
We have, this is a whirlwind tour. We've had expert after expert, and now you have just me in a blank space. This won't last because we have Matt Ward, who is going to be talking. I keep mangling your last name. I look like Worwood, but you actually say it quicker, right? You say Warwood?
I say Worwood, but
Warwood. Okay.
I have problems with names, and so did my dad, and so it could be that we actually pronounce our name wrong. So it could be we go with Worwood.
I like slowing it down, and just to be there. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you.
And everybody, again, if you haven't had a chance to respond. Before we get going, we have the ability to ask questions again through either joining us on the stage or typing a text question or typing a chat question to everybody else or by doing this on Twitter. And so we're eager to hear from you. Now, I have to ask you, first of all, what your project is, what you are mostly working on.
Well, I think my project. What project am I working on? I think.
Well, so right now we only have your voice, so let me just bring you quickly. Turn this sideways so we can hear you while we bring up our other camera. So you're working on the Student of the Future project.
Yeah, so I'm working on two projects. First of all, I think we all have our own our own project as an educator.
Right.
So I'm always trying to better myself as an educator, and I go on a journey with that, and particularly around how I implement project-based learning and try and cultivate creative thinking within a project-based learning environment. I'm lucky in that I'm in digital media and design. And as we know, within the NMC community, one of the great things around digital technology is the opportunity to create something new that can be shared beyond the four walls of the classroom.
Exactly.
And of course, that provides a variety of different possibilities on producing creative outcomes as part of that process. And then the project that you referenced, I'm working on a Class of 2032. So Class of 2032 is a crowdsourcing visualization and documentary project. So I'm kind of doing two parts at the moment. I'm in post-production of the documentary film. And it could be that we produce a few different films as part of this project. And as you know, I interviewed you as part of that. So I'm seeing your face regularly on the screen.
I'm saying this is like a nightmare for you. I mean,
No, it's great. It's great. It's great to be here live on my screen.
Do you want to pause me, maybe crop one side? Or,
I've been doing that. I've been zooming in and zooming out. Yeah.
I've been feeling a little queasy as you do that.
Yeah.
Now I know why. What are you working on? Doing this in Final Cut? Or?
I'm actually trying Adobe Premiere, so I always try to bring in a new technology. So another film I produced was Creativity and Education, Exploring the Imbalance. I did that in Final Cut Pro X because it was reasonably new out, so I wanted to try that out. This year, I haven't really done a film with Adobe Premiere, so I've been trying that out.
Let me just say, if this seems a little bit of too technical, let me just say that he's describing something which for most mortals would be an enormous leap. Final Cut Pro is a very powerful video editing tool. It's one of the standards for use in Hollywood and for television. It's a very, very challenging, very powerful tool. I recommend it, but it's not easy. And then he's casually leaping from that to Avid, which is equally, or Premiere, which is also extremely complex and challenging. So what he's describing is a major cognitive leap. And we're talking about continuous improvement. You're not only continuing your improvement as a teacher, but also as a skilled person, as a technologist and media creator.
And that's huge, right? I think Richard may have referenced something around time and how we've got to, and even UX, UI design in bringing that into the education environment. We as educators constantly need to be trying to solve our own problems and improve our skill set. And so any opportunity I have to use a new piece of technology, I do try and do that, because otherwise you can't survive again. Yes. I'm in digital media. If we're not actively producing and creating ourselves, we're gonna fall behind the times. I certainly take the opportunity when I can with that.
And where are you based? You're at the UConn?
I'm at the University of Connecticut in the digital media and design department there. And the classes I teach are associated a little bit with digital culture, getting the students to think a little bit more about being active participants of our digital culture. What does that mean? And then also I teach some skills around design thinking and getting them to think for the digital space, which again, I think we as educators could benefit from that as well.
One of the purposes of having people doing our Future Transform session live at the conference is people who aren't at the conference a taste of what's going on there. And it sounds like you're talking about design thinking in your professional work at UConn, that you're also touching on a theme that I'm hearing quite a bit throughout. So we've had our previous guest mentioned using a design thinking approach to innovation and prototyping in public universities and public settings. Are you seeing more of this here as well in the conference? We're talking about design thinking.
I am. I mean, design thinking is really a problem-solving process, which I think has got a lot of attention at the moment, primarily because you're seeing it adopted in some traditional business world, but also because of its focus on human-centered design. But creative problem-solving can trace its roots back almost 100 years, and it's very much seen as a process that you begin when you're presented with an ill-defined problem. And as educators, every day we're presented with ill-defined problems that we have to solve. And of course, within project-based learning environments, we also want to try and present our students with ill-defined problems where there's not an obvious right or wrong answer or journey for them to pursue. In regards specifically to your question, the NMC community, there's always been a lot of talk about project-based learning. There was a lot of design thinking during the past couple of conferences that I came to, and how it's being implemented within makerspaces and how it's being implemented within, the type of environments where you expect students to create and make. One of the changes that I've seen this year, and it's only been a couple of days, but I've been excited about, was starting to see the creating and making, the project-based learning and the design thinking type approaches starting to find their ways into more of those traditional courses, the humanities, for example. So I just came out of a workshop which was talking about a journalism course and how they're starting to bring more of the creating and making within the journalism course, while also trying to teach some digital literacy skills, which is another prominent topic that I've noticed here at NMC. But again, it's moved a little bit further along than it did last year, which is a little bit more definition about what we mean when we talk about digital literacy skills, more of a focus towards news, perhaps more of a focus towards civics. Maybe that's partly to do with the outcome of the 2016 election and the way that played out. But that to me is very exciting. I think education has to be a hybrid approach. But we definitely need to bring in some of these more creating and making environments within the traditional courses per se.
Not to be too self-promoting, but at 2:45 here at the conference center, there'll be a session on digital literacy. That's a big change. Thank you. I'm curious, in your work, now that you're reflecting on it in the post-production phase, what have you been learning about the student of 2032?
It's a good question, and we probably went down the documentary part of the project, but there's also that crowdsourcing piece where we've been engaging students, parents, and educators.
Can you describe that a bit for everyone?
Sure. So what we've been doing, we started the project around 2014 and 2014-15, and really the goal of that year was to design a workshop that could engage, that could facilitate this discussion where teachers, students, or educators could engage in a conversation where ideas are generated about what the future school experience might be like in the year 2032. And I use the word "might be like" deliberately because, we some of the conversations about education reform is how do you educate the system? How do you think more creatively? One of my colleagues, Ron Bagetto, speaks about how do you think more creatively inside the box. But the idea of 2032 is that, hey, let's just have fun. Let's not feel pressurized about where we are today. And let's just think about where we could be tomorrow. And we spent the first year designing a workshop that could fit in a classroom or it could fit in a typical professional development session.
In those boxes.
Yeah, and so that in itself has been really interesting, seeing how some of the group dynamics manifest within these conversations. We noticed, for example, educators, really it's very important that educators are given the opportunity to discuss their ideas. One of the things that we had to do is make sure those ideas get put down on the paper, so we've got an opportunity to see those ideas afterwards. And also we try and identify the ideas that are considered wild and wacky. Which can range from time travel, a particular popular idea with students. And I think this might be alluding to your original question, is will artificial intelligence replace the teacher? That's definitely a popular topic that's been coming out over the past couple of years.
And that was a wild topic.
It was a wild topic, and you're right, not so much now because what happened this year was some of the the virtual assistants that have been coming on the market, you're seeing now examples. Amazon, and one of them is an Amazon Echo device that will replace the teacher. Right. So the students are now seeing some of these virtual assistants that utilize artificial intelligence, which is still a reasonably still primitive form in terms of some of the things that they're imagining. But what I see as I sit back is that students still seem to see the school experience today and in the future as a place where information is primarily transferred to them.
Still,
well, if you think about the idea of a teacher being replaced, and I don't know if they mean that, because project-based learning is also a very popular idea.
Right. That's a very different idea.
But if you see it in that, if you see the teacher's role as just someone who, a subject matter expert that just communicates information, then of course we could potentially get to a time in the year 2032 where we do have forms of artificial intelligence and virtual assistants.
We can automate that right now.
So it's a popular idea, and I share that with teachers, and sometimes that becomes a contentious discussion.
I can bet.
And all I'm doing is just sharing what has been communicated by the students, but it definitely interesting discussions.
Let me just remind everybody that we have plenty of opportunity to ask questions. So again, use that teal strip on the very bottom corner of the screen and ask us by text or by chat to your compadres, or come and join us on stage through video. And again, you can always use the Twitter to send us a question or comment that way. We've had some really interesting questions and observations from Tom Hames in the chat box. And we've also seen some good comments from Roxanne Riskin. So the more the better. And in fact, we're going to try and bring Tom Hames up right now if the bandwidth holds. Tom, can you see and or hear us?
Yeah, I can see you. I'm actually running my cell phone right now, not the hotel Wi-Fi. It's working better.
Well, it seems to be okay so far. What questions do you have for us and is looking to the future?
Well, I mean, first, so I asked about the idea of design thinking. I think a lot of people, I see this all the time where people talk the talk and then they don't walk the walk. I mean, I remember at my former institution, we had a big meeting on transformation. And the chancellor came out and did a 20-minute talk on design thinking. He did the whole IDEO thing, and he put the big diagram up on the screen. And of course, the first step of that is empathy. You need to listen to the users. The first problem with that whole process was that there were not any actual users in the room, because it was all a bunch of managers of various IT and instructional technology folks. But then the second problem that occurred that I thought was incredibly hilarious was the chancellor then walked out of the room, and the vice chancellors, respectively, of instruction and IT came up and did 30-minute PowerPoint presentations on what they were going to do.
30 minutes?
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, so where does this whole design thinking thing come into the process? And, a lot of people, I think, have a lot of trouble. One of the problems with design thinking is it makes you be very self-reflective in many different ways, because you start out by asking people what you're doing wrong, what's working for them and what's not working for them, and half the time that creates some very uncomfortable truths that you, first of all, as a human being, but certainly as an institution, don't necessarily want to face. And so I think design thinking really only works is if you practice what you preach. So I was kind of curious because you guys were talking about that. I'm kind of curious about what the University of Connecticut administration thinks about, or anybody else for that matter, obviously.
That's a good question.
So I won't necessarily talk about the administration at the University of Connecticut, but I certainly agree with your point, and I think it's a two-part question. Is how we as educators facilitate design thinking within the classroom environment, and then there's also how we as educators engage in our own problem-solving process. And I think I do want to emphasize that I use the word design thinking at the moment because it is a very popular term. But as I said at the very beginning, design thinking is really a creative problem-solving process. Where it perhaps has differed from previous CPS methods is that its emphasis on the user, as you referenced, one of the first stages of empathy. And we live in a digital world where we can gather a tremendous amount of data about the user, which can, of course, help inform the ideas that we come up with. But when I speak with teachers within professional development sessions, and I talk about this, is first of all, I usually share a story about my own journey implementing my project-based learning environment in my class, because obviously that's my role as an educator. This is my curriculum that I've created. And so I have to go and solve those problems and think about the users, the students in my classroom environment. And I encourage other educators to think about, they have to do the same. They can't take the model that Matthew Worwood created and implement that in their own classroom environment. If we see design thinking or CPS as really just a process to solving problems, we can take pieces of it. So we don't have to necessarily follow design thinking to a T. And so it could be that we don't, there might be, ultimately when you have a problem, you have to go through a clarification stage. You have to define that problem, that wicked problem, tame it, get a better understanding of the problem, and then chart a course as you go about designing a solution. And I always place emphasis for me personally on the process as opposed to the outcome. So when I talk about creative problem solving as an educator, I'm always talking about it from the process. And when I implement it with my students, I think one of the challenges for students, I think they're very good with the technology. They're very good at getting on the technology and creating something. But does it actually respond to how the problem is impacting the user? And so I do spend a lot more time with my students, getting them to clarify the problem, teaching them how to ideate once they've clarified that problem. And that really is what I primarily emphasize. So I don't know, I've shared some additional information. I don't know if that's generated additional questions, but ultimately I think we as individual educators should really look at what our own design process is. If we see ourselves as designers, we should look at creating a design process that works for us. It doesn't have to be the exact design thinking model that's been put out by the D School. At least that's my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of different models. I agree with that. But they all seem to always come back around to, you really have to be listening as much as you are talking. I mean, you really have to listen to what your customer base, whether that's, customer base is the wrong word, but what your users are saying, whether that group of users be the students or faculty and staff, and so it depends on what the use case scenario is too. So.
But I think also prototyping is important. So I think, you shouldn't, I personally don't see myself as taking a summer and solving all of my solutions for the upcoming semester. I see myself as prototyping an idea for the full semester, and I prototype my classroom environment. And then I determine if it's successful or not. If I feel that there's some success to that, and obviously there's different ways we can go about determining that success, then I build upon that idea. So that's why I use journey. I haven't solved all of the problems in my class yet.
You're still in process.
But I'm still in a process, and I value that as an educator. I find that exciting when I tweak here or tweak there. And maybe that's what I think the higher ed could be better at doing. There's a lot of focus on bringing in technology. And to Richard's point early, if you just bring in the technology, you're gonna bring in the old way of doing things, and you're gonna immediately just use the technology to bring about use the technology to do what you've always been doing. That's why you've got the flipped classrooms where you've got, professors talking for an hour on a YouTube video. That's not effective. So
I agree. And that's the real question is, how do you measure that success?
First of all, I want to make sure, I'm glad that you guys got to connect, because Tom is an extraordinary man. I hope to connect with you on the forum down the road, Tom, especially in your new role, teasing everybody. Speaking of process, we've got 2 more guests that we have to bring on. And could we just ask before you go, what's the best way to find out about your new film?
I would say just go to the website class of2032.ucon.edu. There's information about the crowdsourcing project and the film.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This is so exciting. We learned a lot, and please stick around because these guys are going to have some great ideas too.
Thank you.
Thanks again, and thanks for letting me be in your film. Well, we'll move this over. Let me ask you. Last but not least, we have two splendid guests who are here, and they have potentially cryptic roles because they're the ones who ask and which is fascinating. And Paul is, among other things, a professional facilitator. So now I'm on my guard. I have to be very, very careful. If you don't recognize Paul was a guest about 6 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
And talking about education and technology. And tell me, what do you do right now?
Okay. Yes.
What's your current role, function, project?
My current position is as Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology at Palm Beach State College. And I'm tasked with creating learning spaces.
Physical learning spaces?
Physical learning spaces for academic training, as well as learning space, which is the math lab, to address what we were talking about this morning, the more personalized learning for students.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, welcome to the frozen north. It's pretty hot for us up here.
I got off the plane yesterday and I said, am I still in Florida? Now it's just as hot as it is at home.
First day we got here, which is crazy. That's a fantastic project. And Paul, I'm accusing you of being a professional facilitator,
Yeah,
which
please don't
is true.
do that.
But what else do you do?
I write, I train, I teach, I do presentations.
And you're based in the Bay Area.
Yes.
You've got most of the continent represented, or at least bracketed here.
Is there any other part of the continent, Brian?
Oh, see, this is how this is going to go now. Let me ask, if I could, and again, we're coming to the very end of our session, and you guys are kind of like the dessert, I think, for us in many ways.
We're sweeping up afterwards.
Well, I like the dessert metaphor better, but if you want to sweep, that's okay. What are you noticing from the conference so far here at MC? What kind of ideas or topics or moods are you picking up from people?
Yeah, well, what I've been picking up from people is, I think Matthew alluded to this, the design learning.
Yeah.
And I actually think that we just repackaged something that we've been trying to do all along, which originated with years ago when we were talking about, I had a course with HP when we were doing the online courses through NMC. And we were talking about different types of technology-based courses. And one of the courses that I worked on was creating social entrepreneurs using the design cycle engineering model. So we were already kind of in education trying to get students to do design thinking. And then we progressed to the maker spaces, and we had a session. I think, Paul, you were in on that session when I did the wearable technology, and we were all making things. And so we were doing maker spaces, and now it's really taken on, and we're calling it design think, not only doing the physical type of makerspace thinking, but also just the creation, as Matthew said, in our humanities classes and kind of across the board.
Which is huge. Thank you.
So
That's a very powerful trend to see. Paul, what are you seeing here?
What I always look for in a conference like this, I'm seeing the very example of what we are here to talk about. I've seen people using technology very effectively to communicate with each other, to share ideas, to grow with each other, and draw with each other, and to draw others into the conversation. We've been playing on a back channel on Twitter here, encouraging people who are not physically on site to be here with us through the very kind of session that we're doing through Shindig with Brian and everybody else today. And that excites me. It reminds us that our global classroom has no walls. If we have the technology have access to us through that technology, the whole world is part of this. We were tweeting things out this morning during Richard's keynote address, and I was seeing colleagues across the country come back and retweeting and commenting on it a little bit. It reminds us that as training our doers, we're in an incredible environment, and we're thankful to places like Shindig for facilitating the conversations we have, and people like you, Brian, who really, for all the nice things you said, you are a masterful facilitator. It's why I enjoy working around you. I learn time with you.
So this is the great thing about having a lot of facial hairs, that we can blush and no one can tell.
They can see.
They can see. They can imagine.
Blowing up the top of my head. Brian.
Well, that's not going to be.
I see the glow.
Well, then maybe we should check what you've been having for lunch. But that's definitely a huge transformation that we're just really, I think, still coping with in education, which is the sense that we have the classroom door is now blown wide open, and we're still beginning to figure out what that means and how we change our pedagogy. So if you have students making things, right, are they making them just for the instructor who's grading, or are they making them for the entire planet? And that really, really changes things. We have generations of teaching, which is based on that door being sealed shut. And so we really have a lot to rethink about this. So between that and design thinking, if I were to take you two back in time to 1990, you'd be like aliens or literally time travelers. But
I would have been one of the people to see myself as an alien. I'll just out myself. I worked at San Francisco Public for many years, and the poor IT crew there, they were fabulous. At least once a year they'd come in with upgrades, and I would always say, I don't need that. It's going to take me too long to learn that to be effective in my job.
Sure. But what's the William Gibson line? You're not going to quote it, right? The future is already here.
Yes.
And evenly distributed. But we can also go back to, I'm sorry, I forget if it was Matt or Maya who said this, that they're paying attention to the margins, looking for outlandish things, because they eventually become landish, right? They become closer and closer. So you're one of those outlandish guys. Let me ask you both, because we are going to run out of time. Before I ask this huge question, this is your last chance, everybody, to ask a question either via chat box or joining us on stage, or by asking us a text question. If you want to join us on stage, click the join podium box right here to my right. That'll bring you right up on stage, or fire away a tweet. These guys are not tweeting right now, believe me. So the Twitter channels are falling silent. So please ask questions. What are you seeing of the future then? I mean, let me ask both of you. What's your wild idea that you see for Matt's class of 2032, for example? What are you glimpsing ahead for that?
In terms of technology, I have no idea. I'm a big subscriber to that black swan theory that we're terrible at predicting, so let's not embarrass ourselves by predicting.
Yes.
What I do anticipate, as much as I anticipate anything, is the changes are going to be magnificent. I'm sure there'll be bad ones, there'll be good ones, but the changes are going to be the exciting thing to keep all of us rejuvenated and excited about what we do.
What I think of is we're going towards authentic learning opportunities, and students are asking for that and wishing for that.
Yes.
We're connecting a theology class that I helped connect to Myanmar, to monks in Myanmar, an orphanage where they're raising children and teaching them to become monks in a Catholic school theology class that's studying world religions. Students, this is what
world religions in the world.
There you go. So, and I see the technology allowing students to interact with professionals in the field and to bring these experiences almost to where the education is kind of molded into, with experiential learning, molded into what that student will be doing when they leave that higher education place of higher education. So they're already comfortable with it, where, I guess I'm aging myself, but when I was in school, it was all theory and this and that, and then you had to get your experience out in the world.
Yeah.
Now the students are actually getting that experience in the educational system.
One of my, I'm similar age, if not actually older. One of my great mentors, Eric Rabkin, had this fantastic writing assignment for the students, which was try to get something published. And you don't have to succeed. It's good if you do. And where we publish it, totally up to you. So people, this is back in the 90s, you could try publishing TV Guide or Time Magazine or local newspaper. But if there's real world stuff, you had to learn, okay, who is the audience? What are the hoops I have to jump through to get through this? And what are the criteria? And now we can do this easily, simply by publishing a video on YouTube or a web page. What if that's a powerful glimpse of the future? Thank you, guys.
Also, along those lines, that just made me think too. Graphic design classes. I went and visited some schools, and these kids are working with Adobe. So they're high school students who actually have side jobs now, doing animation and graphic arts and things like that, just like what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, make a business card, do this, make a business. So it's translating into, even before they're in college, they're already working with what they've learned.
Were you here before when Maya and Emory were talking about VR?
Yes.
So they're mentioning the kids VR tool. It was basically an updated ViewMaster.
Yes.
Are are we ready for these 13-year-olds?
You're not ready for us.
You are.
We will
No,
show them.
we just need to stay open to what they're doing because they are so inspiring. That's the word.
As are the two of you. I want to have both of you back later on. We're massively over time, so I need to wrap this up. Your song of openness is one that we really need to sing. This one's very present here at MC. And I'm especially glad to have you here, Paul, as well, not just for your facilitative chops, but also for that glimpse of the future. You know, thinking about what could happen. We have to look for the black swans that appear. Thank you so much.
Nice to be here.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. I hope we let you cool off here a bit. I want to thank we have one question here from Roxanne, very quickly. Why don't you bring up your text question and we can go out on that. Now this is a great question. Please, both of you need to take a whack at this. So in higher ed, does social media have an authentic place? So we're referencing authentic learning. What do you think?
Because you're the big Twitter guy, but tweeting with the grandson of Jacques Cousteau because you're in a marine biology class and connecting with experts through Twitter, right? So students can actually interact and learn.
That's pretty authentic.
That's a really authentic social media right there. There's so many examples, but you're the Twitter guru here, Paul.
Absolutely,
so
plenty of examples out there. I'm terrible on spelling, so I can't remember if I've got the guy's name right, but I believe academician Ray J has an unbelievable work documenting what he does with Twitter with his learners. I use those videos on YouTube in the social media classes I do for the American Library Association. So yeah, if you want to check that out, find Ray Junko's work. Look at that as a starting point. He's had fabulous papers. We're at the early stage of that. It's going to be fantastic.
Roxanne, I would like to have you in every single Future Transform from now on because you ask fantastic questions and you guys have fantastic answers. Thank you so much. Don't get up. I need to wrap this up. But so stay here. You can help in the wrapping up. Tara, if you could summon the next slide. I'm afraid we have to end this session. The conference is going to go. We're all going to get up and walk out and have, I think, a town hall meeting and lunch. But I just want to put you a little ahead, thinking in the future. Next week, we'll have my friend John Sainer here. John is a fantastic knowledge management education consultant and writer. He published a book a few years ago about 7 possible futures for higher education in the United States. And we'll get a chance to talk about that and see how his prognostications panned out. John's a very, very deep thinker. I'm really looking forward to seeing him here. And we have other things going on as well. So, for example, if you want to learn more about us, we have the Future Trends in Technology Education report at TD.us. If you want to learn more about this technology, this awesome tool that we've been using all morning, go to shindig.com. In the meantime, we'll see you either in the halls of the NMC or online and then next week. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for participating. And thank you guys for these fantastic guests. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time. And thank you to Tara.